One night, in a small cave above Mecca, the course of human history changed forever. But the story of that night did not begin in the cave. Months earlier, something unusual had already begun. Strange dreams, quiet signs, moments of solitude that felt heavier than silence. It was as if the world itself was preparing a single human heart for the moment revelation would finally arrive. This is the story of the first revelation. Some beginnings don't arrive with noise. They arrive as a feeling you can't explain, a quiet restlessness in the heart, a clarity that feels unfamiliar. As Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, approached his late 30s, unusual moments began appearing in his life. Not a spectacle, not as something he searched for. Sometimes a voice from the unseen would call out, "Ya Muhammad." And at times there were lights, brief flashes, appearing and disappearing, like a curtain opening for a moment and closing again. He did not fully understand what these signs meant, but he knew they were not meaningless. They felt like the beginning of something, though he did not yet know what. These moments made him thoughtful, not proud, and he carried them quietly. He spoke about them only with the one person whose presence felt like safety. Khadijah. Khadijah was more than a wife. She was calm in moments of uncertainty. When something felt strange, she did not dismiss it. When the world felt confusing, she did not add more noise. She listened. And listening, when done with love, can be a kind of mercy. In a time when he could easily have felt alone inside his own experience, he was not alone, because he had her, and she had him. Then another kind of preparation began. Dreams, not ordinary dreams that disappear by morning. These were clear and truthful. What he saw at night would appear in the day with the same clarity as the morning light. Night after night the dreams came, and day after day they unfolded exactly as they had appeared. It was as if something unseen was gently preparing his heart, because revelation is not just information, it is weight, it is transformation, and a heart must be prepared to carry it. After this season of dreams, another longing grew stronger than anything else. Solitude. Not loneliness. Solitude, the kind that clears the noise of the world from the mind. Mecca was a city filled with trade and tribes, but also with idols. The Kaaba, built for the worship of one God, had become surrounded by hundreds of statues. Tradition remained, but truth had faded. His heart could not accept that as normal, so he began withdrawing from the crowds. He looked at the mountains, the desert, the silent sky filled with stars, and yet none of them answered his questions. Why were human beings created? What was the purpose of life? What was the truth behind this vast universe? The answers he was searching for were not meant to come from the mountains or the stars. They were meant to come from the one who created them. Outside Mecca stood a rugged mountain known as Jabal al-Nur, the mountain of light. Near its summit was a narrow cave, the Cave of Hira. Every year, during the month of Ramadan, he would climb this mountain with simple provisions prepared by Khadijah. There he would spend days in reflection, prayer, and quiet contemplation. The climb was steep, the rocks were sharp. With every step, the noise of the city faded below. Some truths require assent, not only with the body, but with the soul. Then came the night, a quiet night in Ramadan. The air around the mountain was still, the kind of silence that does not feel empty, but full, as if creation itself was waiting. And then, suddenly, he was not alone. An angel appeared, Jibreel. The moment was overwhelming, not because it was dramatic, but because it was greater than the human mind is used to holding. The angel commanded, "Read." The reply came honestly, "I cannot read." Again the command came, "Read." Again he answered, "I cannot read." Then, after the third command, the first verses were given, words unlike any that had ever been heard before. "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, the one who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know." These were the first verses of the Quran, the first revelation. In that moment, the message of Islam began, not with a sword, not with power, but with knowledge. He repeated the verses exactly as they were given. The words settled in his heart. Then the angel disappeared, and the cave returned to silence. But the silence was no longer the same, because it now carried a message. He descended the mountain with a trembling heart, not trembling from doubt, but from awe. When he reached home, he said only a few words, "Cover me, cover me." Khadijah wrapped him in a cloak and listened carefully as he described what had happened. He confessed his fear, not fear of the truth, but fear of the responsibility that had just been placed upon him. Khadijah responded with calm certainty, "Allah would never disgrace you. You keep family ties, you help the poor, you honor your guests, you stand beside those in need." Her proof was not theory, her proof was his life. A life of mercy is not abandoned by the Lord of mercy. Still, they sought confirmation from someone familiar with earlier scriptures, Waraqa ibn Nawfal, an elderly man who had studied previous revelations. When he heard the story, he immediately recognized what had happened. The angel who had appeared was the same angel who came to the prophets before, and he said words that were both comforting and heavy. "You are the prophet of this nation. Your people will oppose you, because whenever truth appears in a society built on pride, resistance follows." And so the story of Islam begins, not with crowds, not with power, but with a quiet night, a small cave, and a heart that had been prepared through patience, solitude, and sincerity. Because guidance is not just something a person hears, it is something a heart becomes ready to carry. And in that quiet cave above Mecca, the message that would change the world finally began.